This one stands out in that we have such a great trail of documentation to demonstrate Mr. Peevey's direct involvement in making a deal happen over the objections of the utility itself.
The paper trail that may explain why San Diego Power is among the most expensive in the nation. A scramble to rescue animals from the border fire, the challenges for a San Diego agency charged with keeping man's best friend safe. And a new promise to San Diego students, the plan to pick up the tab for books and tuition. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amita Sharma. Evacuation orders are being lifted as the fight to contain the border fire continues on the ground and in the air. Hundreds of firefighters are trying to make progress on a 6,500-acre wildfire that has destroyed 2 homes since Sunday. It's at 15% containment today. Flames are threatening nearly 1,000 structures in backcountry communities near the U.S.-Mexico line. Thick chaparral and other tinder-dry foliage are fueling the fire. CAL FIRE tweeted about lifting evacuation orders for the Potrero area. CAL FIRE says as of 6 p.m., the general public will be allowed into the area. All other evacuation orders remain in effect. More specific information is available on our website at kpbs.org. Experts say California will face another long, hot fire season even after a wet winter and spring. Officials say so far this year, more than 2,000 different wildfires have burned nearly 33,000 acres. They also say the winter's precipitation was not enough to keep grass green and make up for the previous 4 years of drought. More than 200 people have been evacuated from their homes due to the border fire near Campo. The area is also home to many pets and livestock. KPBS reporter Taryn Mento says the San Diego County Department of Animal Services is working with the San Diego Humane Society to ensure animal residents also have a safe place to go.
The Department of Animal Services is helping dozens of small and large animals displaced by the fire. So far, that has included 29 miniature donkeys, 22 dogs, 22 chickens, and 13 rabbits, plus horses, goats, donkeys, and an emu. Some animals were rescued by teams who are working nearly alongside firefighters battling the flames, while other animals were dropped off by residents when they were evacuated or were picked up by the department at an owner's request. If you have no place to bring your pets, you can take small animals to the department's 3 shelters or take livestock to the Boulevard Customs and Border Protection Station. If you need assistance moving, feeding, or locating your pet, you can contact the department for help at 619-236-2341. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
The developers of the One Paseo project in Carmel Valley will be back in front of the San Diego City Council next week to pitch a new plan for an empty 24-acre lot south of Del Mar Heights Road. The original One Paseo project was initially approved by the council, but enough signatures were gathered to get that approval rescinded. Opponents were worried the project would increase traffic congestion. Developer Kilroy Realty says the new plan would have the same amount of housing units as One Paseo, but only half the proposed office and retail space, which the developer says wouldn't attract the same amount of vehicle traffic. A public hearing on the proposal will be held next Monday, June 27th at 1 p.m. It'll be held in Golden Hall to accommodate an expected large crowd. They're one step closer to walking off the job. Union workers at grocery stores around Southern California voted in favor of a walkout if a labor deal is not reached. KPBS's Deb Welsh takes a look at what may be the next steps in contract talks.
The union's contract expired in March. Grocery workers cast ballots in the strike authorization vote Monday. The grocery chains say they're committed to reaching an agreement with the union. Union officials say salary increases being offered by the chains, 10 cents an hour in each of the next 3 years, are too small. The union also says the grocery stores are trying to increase employee benefit costs. The labor dispute, meantime, is raising fears of the 2003-2004 grocery strike that played out over the course of 141 days. That work stoppage outage is estimated to have cost the supermarket chains as much as $2 billion, with locked-out workers losing as much as $300 million in wages. Retail experts say another strike could drive more grocery business to competitors of unionized stores, which include Ralph's and Albertsons. Deb Welch, KPBS News.
About 200 San Diego students will have their tuition and books paid for under a new program launched today by the San Diego Community College District. It's called San Diego Promise, and its aim is to ensure that students who want to go to college can, even if they don't have a lot of money.
Hearing about this program, I never really understood what it was until my counselor came up to me and told me, you need to do this because I know your situation and I know you need help, so this is a godsend to you.
This is exactly an example of a great partnership with a community college saying to our young people, come on over here, get your college education started, and by the way, it's completely paid for.
The San Diego Community College District is footing the bill for the program this year, but is hoping to secure funding from local individuals and corporations to expand the program to more students next year. In a typical year, up to 2,500 students from local high schools enroll in City, Mesa, and Miramar colleges. San Diego's USS Coronado has embarked on its first deployment. The littoral combat ship left the city today and heads to the Pacific. Officials say the Coronado and its crew of about 70 sailors will participate in the multi-nation Rim of the Pacific exercise off Hawaii known as RIMPAC. The Coronado will later operate out of Singapore during a 16-month deployment. Crews will rotate every 4 months. California acted within its rights when it ordered 7 health insurance companies in 2014 to cover elective abortions, according to federal authorities. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services said the state's order was sound because it applied to insurance companies and not the employers who oppose abortion on moral grounds. The Brock Turner case is prompting new legislation. Turner is the former Stanford University student who was sentenced to 6 months in jail this month after he was convicted of sexually assaulting an unconscious woman. Now the prosecutor on the case is pitching a bill that would require jail time and bar probation for anyone convicted of raping a person who is unconscious or too intoxicated to consent. The number of California drivers using cell phones is rising, as are deaths and injuries blamed on distracted driving. Meanwhile, the number of tickets issued by the California Highway Patrol has substantially declined. Today's report released by the California Office of Traffic Safety says at least 12.8% of drivers were seen using mobile devices during a survey earlier this year. That's up from about 9% last year. A political underdog is ready to take on House Speaker Paul Ryan. Associated Press reporter Carrie Antelfinger explains how he hopes to tap into the same voter unrest fueling Donald Trump's rise.
Not many people in Wisconsin's 1st Congressional District know Paul Nealon.
Who are you? I'm Paul Nealon, sorry. I'm running for Congress.
The businessman is a long-shot primary challenger to Republican House Speaker Paul Ryan. He's trying to tap into the same voter unrest that has fueled Donald Trump's campaign.
I'm not obviously as rich as Mr. Trump is, but I can't be bought.
Ryan has never faced a real election threat since being voted in 18 years ago. Since then, the former vice presidential candidate has had high approval ratings and currently has $7.6 million to spend on re-election. Nealon hasn't released his numbers yet.
We already, in 4 weeks, have 4,000 donors. We've already raised more money than Dave Bratt did going up against Eric Cantor.
Cantor was the House Majority Leader in 2014 when an obscure college professor ousted him in what was supposed to be a no-contest Republican primary in Virginia. Nealon, a first-time politician, says Ryan let down the district by not stopping the Trans-Pacific Partnership Free Trade Deal, claiming it will ship jobs overseas.
Why don't you come back to Wisconsin and debate me man-to-man, face-to-face, on the realities of TPP? And if you don't want to debate me, maybe we can arm wrestle.
While Ryan said he would agree to a debate, he wasn't too concerned about the race during a recent interview with the AP.
I am born and raised in this town, in this district. People know me really well. I have done over 700 listening sessions, town hall meetings. People know me. They know I am a person of conviction.
Yet Trump's rise means no one can take anything for granted.
But certainly Ryan begins with a strong foundation of highly favorable views and very low negative views within his own party. That will need to shift, or the electorate will have to change in the primary to put him in what we would conventionally consider electoral danger. Of course, this year has not been a conventional year.
When Ryan initially hesitated on endorsing Trump, former vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin went on the attack, supporting Nealon to help defeat Ryan. Despite the internal GOP feud, a new Marquette University poll found Ryan is still viewed favorably by about half of registered voters polled.
Hello.
But Nealon isn't giving up.
Hi, I'm running for Congress. My name's Paul Nealon. David and Goliath. Very nice to meet you. They didn't think David could win. And we all know what happened with that story.
But this story between a newcomer and a popular adversary will ultimately depend on the will of the people in the August primary. Carrie Angelfinger, Associated Press.
Rebellious Democrats shut down the House's legislative work today, staging a sit-in on the House floor and refusing to leave until they secured a vote on gun control measures. Exasperated Republicans were forced to recess while cutting off cameras that showed the protests. But in an unprecedented step, C-SPAN used live video feeds from San Diego Congressman Scott Peters' Periscope account to transmit words and images from the House chamber. More than 200 Democrats demanded a vote on measures to expand background checks and block gun purchases by some suspected terrorists. The social media footage was grainier than the typical feed C-SPAN broadcasts, but the network says they plan to cover the event until it's finished. Recent headlines indicate the overdose epidemic is worsening, and now comes news that 1/3 of the people on Medicare received at least one prescription for commonly abused opioids like OxyContin and fentanyl in 2015. This at a cost of $4 billion. The Inspector General for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says Medicare beneficiaries who were prescribed opioids got an average of 5 prescriptions or refills. In total, there were 40 million prescriptions for the drugs last year, enough to give one to every Medicare beneficiary in the country. A federal receiver has returned control today of inmate health care at 2 prisons to California. One of the prisons is in Imperial east of San Diego. California's renewed responsibility for medical care at the 2 prisons follows a decade of reforms brought on by a lawsuit over prison conditions. The federal court-appointed receiver has handed back control at 6 of the state's 34 prisons since last year. New signs today that San Diego may ease up on water use restrictions. City workers will present a plan tomorrow to the City Council's Environment Committee. It would change a level 2 drought alert response to a level 1 drought watch. This would make water conservation efforts voluntary, allowing residents to water their lawns more than 2 days a week. San Diego customers have reduced water consumption by 18% since June of last year. California's tree apocalypse is getting worse. Last year, Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency due to the dramatically high number of dead trees. Now officials say the drought and a bark beetle epidemic have killed an additional 66 million trees since last year. Experts say the unprecedented situation creates a high risk of wildfires. Some U.S. leaders are calling on Congress to increase spending to manage forests in California and nationwide. State emergency officials are closely monitoring the heat wave in Southern California. They are particularly concerned about possible power grid emergencies causing blackouts.
But it's entirely possible we're going to see several flex alerts this summer because it's anticipated to be very hot. And if it doesn't cool off in the nighttime, you're not able to open your windows. That means they're using air conditioners and a lot of power all through the night.
The heat wave is not finished in San Diego. Steph Davis says temperatures will sizzle in the desert but cool off in the rest of the county. That's tonight on the KPBS Weather Report.
Fairly quiet conditions this Wednesday across the San Diego area. Now you'll notice on satellite and radar just off to the north and east here across the Four Corners. We're dealing with some clouds and showers rolling on through, but across Southern California, we're missing the bulk of the action. A few spotty showers seen earlier on today in our satellite and radar, but many folks remaining dry from Borrego Springs all the way towards San Diego itself. And we do expect quiet conditions as we wrap up our Wednesday as well. So clear tonight and mild in Borrego Springs. Your overnight low falling back to 74 degrees. Nothing to worry about weather-wise as we wrap up the midweek in Mount Laguna. Dry with your overnight low at 55. Upper 50s in Ramona and Alpine with a quiet night in store. 65 with an increase in clouds in Oceanside. Clear and comfortable tonight in San Diego. Remaining dry with your overnight lows back into the 60s. Looking ahead to our Thursday, still sizzling across the Four Corners and much of interior California. However, comfortable across the coastline with that nice sea breeze. We'll still see that high heat in place, though, across the mountains and the desert areas. Here's a look at your extended forecast for the coast with that nice sea breeze. Very comfortable out there. Clouds breaking for sun Thursday. High temperature nice at 75 degrees. Fog lifting for sunshine Friday with your daytime high at 76. If you're heading for the coast for the weekend, things looking good. Fog breaking for sunshine Saturday with your daytime high at 78 degrees. Mostly sunny skies Sunday, high 77. We'll break back into the 80s at the coast on Monday. Here's a look at your 5-day outlook. Inland, low clouds, then sun for your Thursday. High temperature 75. Temps climbing to the upper 70s Friday. And as we kick off the weekend on Saturday, mostly sunny and nice for your Sunday. High temperature 78 degrees. Plenty of bright sunshine early next week Monday with your daytime high near 80. 5-day outlook for the mountains, still showing that warm weather in place. Mild with sunshine Thursday and Friday with your daytime highs climbing to the mid-80s. We'll flirt with 90 degrees to kick off the weekend in the mountains on Saturday, breaking to the 90s Sunday, and it's going to be a hot one out there for your Monday. 5-day outlook for the desert, still showing that high heat in place. 109 Thursday, 110 on Friday, bright and sunny both days, remaining in the triple digits for the weekend. Sunny and hot Saturday, 110 your high for Sunday, 112 your daytime high for Monday. Please do remember to exercise caution in this high heat. Steph Davis, KPBS News.
As San Diegans are once again asked to conserve electricity during the recent heat wave, most probably remember little about how they got the two power stations in Escondido and Otay Mesa that are now their biggest sources of electricity. But energy experts do remember the deal. They say it goes back to a familiar name, one now mired in scandal. iNews Source reporter Chris Young explains how this deal may be connected to the region's high electricity bills.
Cast your mind back to the power crisis in 2001, when no one in California could depend on the lights staying on.
They're trying to reduce the number of television sets in use next Sunday because the supply of electricity in California is so vulnerable to any increase in demand.
It is definitely lights out at this intersection in West Hollywood today. A rolling blackout sweeping through California for the second day in a row.
Coming out of that crisis, policymakers faced a fundamental question. How do we prevent blackouts?
In the early 2000s, the regulators were focused on stemming the hemorrhaging, and that was really the focus. So reliability was very much top of mind.
We know now that much of the crisis was caused by severe market manipulation. But at the time, many policymakers, including Governor Gray Davis, said the state needed to stock up on electricity.
The only long-term solution is to build more power plants.
In 2003, San Diego Gas and Electric heeded the governor's call. The utility let out its first request in years for new electrical generation, 300 megawatts, about enough for 300,000 homes. Yet it ended up buying 4 times that much, most of it wrapped up in 2 new gas-fired power plants. Those 2 plants cost more than $1.2 billion, many times more than initial estimates.
They came in for a limited need, and they left with armfuls of power plants, way more than they needed.
In the deal, SDG&E got 2 large power plants, one in Escondido and one in Otay Mesa. The Otay Mesa generating station was far from the grid. It required $200 million in new power lines. Even staff at the California Public Utilities Commission said the plant wasn't needed. The story of how both plants were approved can now be told thanks to witnesses who have come forward, records pieced together by Matt Friedman, and documents obtained by iNewsSource at the Commission's headquarters in San Francisco. They show the powerful chief of the Public Utilities Commission, Michael Peevey, forcefully intervened in the deal and gave SDG&E an ultimatum. Sign a deal for the plant in Otay Mesa, or the Escondido plant will not be approved.
But this one stands out in that we have such a great trail of documentation to demonstrate Mr. Peevey's direct involvement in making a deal happen over the objections of the utility itself, and forcing a series of power commitments that had really questionable value.
SDG&E hired an economist, James Booth, to observe negotiations. He recalls a commission staffer demanding a deal for Otay Mesa on Peevey's behalf.
I was a little shocked. I just didn't see that as the role of the commission to be weighing in on picking a particular project.
Peevey's critics say this deal set the stage for the tainted agreements that have recently engulfed the agency in scandals and sparked criminal investigations by state and federal authorities. Energy experts say ratepayers are still paying for these plants.
Where I think it impacts things more than anything is making a transition to renewable power remarkably expensive when it doesn't have to be. Our rates are among the highest in the country, and people like to say it's because it's California and just all these special different requirements. Not true. It's just that we have a compliant PUC that basically finds a way to approve all of these projects that are unnecessary projects.
Another former commissioner, Jeffrey Brown, also had concerns about Peevey's involvement in negotiations, but in the end, he voted to approve the deal. He says the decision has to be seen in light of the energy crisis.
The situation was getting kind of desperate, and my bias was toward action.
San Diego Gas and Electric declined an interview request. In an email, a spokeswoman for the utility said history has proven that both the Otay Mesa and Palomar energy centers have helped SDG&E meet our customers' energy needs and maintain a reliable electrical system over the past decade. Down at the very bottom of the state of California, up against the hills that overlook Tijuana across the border, the Otay Mesa power plant is now the biggest source of power for the state's second largest city. It's also San Diego County's largest greenhouse gas polluter. It's a power plant, but it's also a symbol of a major build-out of natural gas power plants that some now question, and of decisions made by a regulatory agency now under intense scrutiny. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Chris Young.
Megan Wood and video journalist Katie Shulev helped produce that story.
I'm Gwen Eiffel. On the next news hour, the head of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, sits down with Judy Woodruff. That's Wednesday on the PBS NewsHour.
An invasive fish ruined the habitat for trout in Oregon's Diamond Lake. Officials fought back with a poison to wipe out the fish and have the lake start over from scratch. But it's back. In tonight's Earth Fix report, producer Jess Burns shows us the return of the tui chub.
This is the tui chub. Despite its name, it's not a particularly fat fish. But it does eat a lot of insects and zooplankton from the lakes and rivers where they're native in the West, including the Columbia, the Snake, Lake Tahoe, and the Klamath River. But elsewhere, the tui chub is invasive and throws ecosystems out of balance. They're persona non grata. Okay, pescana non grata. Well, you get it, they aren't welcome. And this has been the case in Oregon's Diamond Lake for more than 60 years. Back in the 1950s, Oregon wanted to make the lake a premier fishing spot for stocked rainbow trout. But to improve water quality and ensure there was enough food, the state decided the non-native tui chub already living there had to go. So wildlife officials drained down the water and dumped 100 tons of a poison called rotenone into the lake. It was curtains for the chub, 32 million of them, and most everything else in the lake. and Diamond Lake became one gem of a fishing spot. Sorry. But in 1992, much to everyone's shock, Tui chub were found in the lake once again. But how could that have happened? Nope. Not likely. It probably went something like this. Using live bait in Diamond Lake is illegal, by the way. As the chub multiplied over the next decade, the water became cloudy and the trout numbers dipped. So, the state poisoned the lake again in 2006. And this time killed 90 million chub. Fishermen flocked back to Diamond Lake. But the story doesn't end there. In 2015, another chub was found in the lake. Yep, one single chub. But can there just be one? Or is this the beginning of another invasion? And what weapons will be used next in the Great War on chubs?
This Earth Fix reporting project was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us and have a great evening.